For the first item on the checklist, I'd like you guys to take a minute to check your homework from yesterday just so you can see how you did with the first 4 equations that you solved by yourself. So have that homework either out in front of you or up in Notability, and you're going to have to kind of flip back and forth on it. Compare your answers that you got with the answers that you see on the screen. If you got all 4 of them correct, you can keep moving. If you want to check your work and kind of see if it looks like how mine does, you can keep watching the video so you can see how the problems are worked out. I do ask you guys that if you missed any of these 4, that you go to that spot in the video and watch how it's solved and then fix any errors that you might need to on your worksheet. But if you got them all correct and you have all your work shown, you can stop the video now and move on to number 2. All right, let's take a look at this equation. Remember, the first thing that we want to do is just kind of draw our line down the center to remind us that the left and the right side are separate and have to stay balanced. The next thing we'll want to do, like we talked about in class, is see if we have any like terms that we can combine here. So we're going to be simplifying both sides. I see I have an x and a positive 3x, so together that makes 4x. And then I have a plus negative 4. And you can either keep it like that or you can write minus 4. Either one is going to be fine there. And then on the right hand side, I've got a 2x, and I can't combine that with anything. And then I've got a negative 1 and a positive 3, which means we get a positive 2. So we combined our like terms. The next thing I want to do is I see that I've got 4x over here and 2x over here. And remember, our end goal is to get those x's by themselves on one side of the mat and to have them positive. So to do that, we kind of look to see which is the smallest variable. Where's the one with the least number? So over here I have 2x. That's smaller than 4. So this is the side we're going to try to get rid of. So I'm asking myself, well, what do I do to get rid of 2x? How do I make this go away? And the answer is I can subtract 2x. Okay? But whatever you do to the right-hand side, you've got to do to the left. So I'm going to write that underneath here also. And on the right-hand side, 2x minus 2x cancels, and I'm just left with a positive 2. And then over on the left side, I have 4x minus 2x, and that's 2x, and then I still have this plus negative 4 over on that side of the mat as well. So now I've got my x's positive on the left side, but we need to get rid of anything else that's with it, so I'm trying to look for how can I get rid of this plus and negative 4. And the answer there is we want to take away a negative 4, or kind of do the opposite. Another way to think of this is this, some of you might like seeing it like this better, 2x minus 4 equals 2, in which case you might find that it's easier to go, well, what's the opposite of subtracting 4? And that would be to add 4. And if you do that to the left, you've got to do it to the right. It'd be like making adding tiles that would make those 0 pairs cancel out. And then the left-hand side, I'm left with 2x equals, on the right side, I have 2 plus 4, which is 6. And then my final step is I need to divide by how many x's I have. I have 2 x's, so I'm going to show that I'm dividing both sides by 2. And 2x divided by 2 is just x. And then 6 divided by 2 is 3. I'm going to box my final answer, and then we'll go through later how you can check that again. But right now, this is as far as you need to take it. All right, with example number 2, I'm going to draw my line down the center to remind me that I'm separating everything from the left from everything on the right. And then on the left-hand side, I'm going to start by combining any like terms. I've got a 3x and a plus 3x. That's a total of 6x. And then we have plus negative 1. I'm just going to write minus 1 because I kind of like that better. You can keep it as plus negative 1 if you want to. And then on the right-hand side, there's no terms that can be combined, so I'm just going to recopy it as 4x plus 9. All right, now I'm looking to try to get all my x's positive on one side of the mat. So to do that, I see that I have fewer x's over here. This is the side I'm going to start with to try to eliminate, like we talked about in class. We want to start with the side that has fewer variables, or in this case, fewer x's. So if I want to get rid of 4x, I can subtract 4x from the right mat, or the right side of the equation. And if I do it to one side, remember I have to do it to the other. So it'd be like, if you can picture your tile mat here, you'd be taking 4x tiles off the left and the right. That cancels out over on the right-hand side, and so all I have left would be a positive 9. And then on the left-hand side, I had 6x, I took 4x away, so I'm left with 2x, and then I still have this minus 1. All right, we've got our x's positive over here, and now we need to get rid of the minus 1. So to undo minus 1, I'm going to add 1 to make that cancel out. But if you do it to the left, you got to do it to the right. So we're left with 2x on the left-hand side, and then 9 plus 1 is 10 on the right-hand side. And then our final step is divide by how many x's you have, and since I have 2 of them, I need to divide both sides by 2. 2x divided by 2 is just x, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I have an answer of 5. And remember, we'll look at how you can go back and check that later. This is as far as you need to take this problem right now. If you're watching this part of the video, that means you may have missed number 3. So let's look at how we can solve this problem together. I'm going to draw my line down the middle to separate the left side of the equation from the right. And this one's a little different than the other ones you've done in number 1 or 2, because if you look, right here, right here, you'll see we've got some parentheses. We need to use the distributive property here. Okay, we need to do that before we go any further, before we start simplifying. Before we start combining like terms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 3 and I'm distributing it. Okay, and this 3 times x and then the 3 times negative 1 are going to go together. And I'll show you what that looks like here in just a sec. I'm going to recopy it below. So I'm going to bring down negative 2x plus 1, because I didn't do anything different there. But then I'm going to do plus 3 times x, which is 3x, minus 3 times 1, which is 3. Okay? And then on the right-hand side, there is no distributive property. The only parentheses there are just kind of keeping that negative grouped with the x. So I'm going to just rewrite negative 4 plus negative x minus 2. Now some of you may have combined terms over there, and that would have been fine too. I'm just going to kind of take it one step at a time. All right, so now I'm looking, I got my distributive property, or I've got that distributed there. Now I'm going to start combining any like terms that I have. So on the left-hand side, I see a negative 2x and a positive 3x. And that means together, that would add up to just 1x. Because 2 of those would cancel out 2 of those, and there'd be 1x left. And then we have a positive 1 and a negative 3. Well, 1 minus 3 is negative 2, so I'm going to put a negative 2 there. Okay. Now on the right-hand side, I've got just a negative x, or a plus negative x, so I'm just going to rewrite it as negative x. And then I've got a negative 4 and a negative 2, which makes a total of negative 6. Okay, so now I'm looking at x minus 2. I don't know why I put my 1 there. Now I'm looking at x minus 2 over here equals negative x plus 6. So like we talked about in class, our goal is to get all those x's on one side, and we want them positive. So right now I've got an x over here and a negative x over here. To get them all on one side, we want to find the one that has fewer, and we're going to get rid of that one. So right now I've got negative x on the right. That's less than x. So to undo that, I'm going to add an x. All right. If you picture an equation mat, you guys, it'd be like having a red x and then you're adding a blue one to it. It's going to make a 0 pair, so they disappear. They cancel out. But if you're doing it to the right, you have to do it to the left-hand side. So we have a negative x plus x. That cancels out. So over on the right, all that I have left is negative 6. And then on the left-hand mat, I have x plus x. That's 2x. And then I bring down my minus 2. All right, all my x's are positive and on one side of the mat over here. We need to now get rid of this minus 2. So what do we need to do to undo minus 2? Or what's the inverse of subtracting 2? Well, if we added 2, those would cancel out, right? But if we do it to the left, you have to make sure you do it to the right. Okay, so now over here we have 2x equals negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. And then our final step is to divide both sides by how many x's we had. I had 2 of them, so I'm going to divide by 2. And I'm left with x equals negative 4 divided by 2, which is negative 2. And that's as far as you need to take this problem at this time. And if you're watching this part of the video, that means you probably missed number 4, so let's look at how you get that. Okay, I'm going to start by drawing my line down the center to separate my left-hand side from my right. And then what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to rewrite without using any of my parentheses. We need to distribute this negative to what's inside the parentheses here. So here's what that looks like. Okay, this x stays as is, so I'm going to recopy it, plus 2, okay, that all stays the same, but now you have this negative on the outside of the parentheses. So what that means is you have to distribute it to everything that's inside the parentheses. Or think of it as you take whatever's inside and you make it the opposite. So instead of minus negative 2x, that becomes plus 2x. Okay? Over on the right-hand side, the x stays the same, plus 5 stays the same, but then I have a negative on the outside of my parentheses, so that means everything in here becomes the opposite. So instead of x, it's a negative x, or you can think of that as minus x. And then instead of minus 3, it becomes plus 3. And again, that's because this negative would go with the x, and then this negative would go with the negative 3. And a negative 3 is a plus 3. All right, now we've got everything distributed. Let's start combining our like terms. So on the left-hand side, I have an x plus 2x, and that's 3x. And then I still just have this plus 2 left over, so we got all 3 of those, equals, on the right-hand side, I have x minus x. Well, that cancels out, right? X minus x is 0. And then I have a plus 5 and a plus 3, which is a plus 8, or a positive 8. Okay, so now I have a new equation of 3x plus 2 equals 8. And I have my x's positive on this side of the equation. It doesn't matter which side they're on, but I just want to make sure they're positive, and they're here. So now I need to get rid of anything else that's connected to it. So I have this plus 2 on that mat, so I'm going to be taking away 2. That's the opposite of adding. If I do it to the left-hand side, though, to make that cancel, I need to make sure that I'm doing it to the right-hand side. So what that looks like is over on the left, I have 3x left, because this part canceled. And then on the right, I have 8 minus 2, which is 6. And then as that last step, remember, you always divide by how many x's you have. I have 3 x's right now, so I'm going to divide by 3. And on the right-hand side, I have to divide by 3 as well. And 3x divided by 3 is just x, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. So we get an answer of x equals 2. And again, that's as far as you need to take this problem right now. We'll look at how to check our answers next week. And just so you know, there will be much more to come on this. We'll be doing a lot of solving equations this year. This was just getting your feet wet with it. So if you're stuck on it, let me know, but relax, we'll be doing a lot more of these in the days and weeks ahead.